Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the CIV podcast. We're so happy to have you. Welcome to the last episode of season 2. So we're so glad if you stuck around this long to be at the end of this season. But we're just so excited to see what happens next. Mm-hmm. And we're so excited today because we get to talk to our next guest, which is Anita Gonzales. So welcome to the couch. You're not on our couch, but you're on a couch. So thank you for coming. Anita is a well-loved colleague at Fraser Valley Events Academy. I have the pleasure of working with her. So why don't I let her talk about herself a little bit? Yeah, I guess I said your name already, but what do you do here at Church in the Valley, or in the broader aspect of the Lower Mainland? And what are some things you're involved in?
Okay, so here at Church in the Valley, I'm currently focused on boundaries. This is my thing. We've been doing it for 3 years, 3 fall sessions of 11 weeks. I've been able to facilitate that with a couple of other ladies that have been really wonderful. That's kind of my main focus. When I first came to Church in the Valley about 3 years ago, it was just kind of what I've always done. I came here from another church and just felt like children. That's always been my thing. So I just jumped right in journeys. Nice. I know Sancho talked about that last week.
Yeah.
That was fun. Those kids are now in 9th grade. That was my little class, and they loved it. And I had to, break it to them because once I started with the boundaries, I realized it was too much. I was doing every week for a year and a half of journeys, and they would always ask me, do you want a break? But I just really needed something to pour my life into at that point. I was in a big transition. And journey class was it, and I loved it. And then I told them, okay, so I have bad news. I won't be your teacher anymore. And they said, oh, why not? And then I said, well, it's because I'm doing this with the single moms. At that time, it was just single moms, the boundaries course. And I told them a little bit about what it was going to be about. And they're like, oh, well, that's a good reason, though.
Okay, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, this is the Faith Journeys podcast, or Faith Journey season. And we've just been diving into the faith journeys of the people that we've been able to talk to. And we would love if you could touch on your faith journey. I know you've seen a lot of things and been a lot of places. So wherever you'd like to start, whether that's at the beginning or in the middle or right now, wherever you want to take us.
Sure. So, I'll start kind of at the beginning. When I was about 5, my mom first found the Adventist church. And she was kind of in and out of the church. She divorced my dad at 5. And then, he was abusive. And so it was best at that time. And it was also hard for her to keep her faith in our home. Mm-hmm. And so with that transition, it was better for her. And then she kind of came in and out of the church. And so did we. We just followed what she did, my sister and I. But eventually I had to make my own decision about what I was going to do. And it was in 8th grade. At that point, my older sister decided this wasn't the life for her. Now she's an amazing Christian woman. But at that time, she decided it was not the life for her. And she chose to live with my dad. And this was our first year in high school together. We were about to go into 9th and she would be in 12th. And so my 8th grade year, I made this decision that I would stay with my mom. So that was my choice. And then my mom said, oh, I think, there's better options for you than this public school. And she sent me to an academy out of state, which is the best thing that could ever happen to me because I met, Adventists and families, and I was boarding. So it was just like kind of a new family as well. That was wonderful. And I had an amazing grade 10 Bible teacher. Shout out to Mr. Holland, who helped all of us in that class so much, but helped me make a decision for baptism. So it was when I was in 10th grade that I got baptized as an Adventist myself, dedicated my life, and haven't turned back. A couple glances in the rearview mirror, but never turned back since then.
Awesome. And where are you from?
I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
I'm American. Don't hold it against me.
Awesome. So what do you think, this is a very, and it's not a bad thing. I feel like we've also, been raised Adventist, and that's kind of all we've ever known. But what are some of the things that you noticed specifically in your walk being in in that Adventist realm? Like, what are some of the challenges that maybe you faced while being in it? Because, you know, I feel like we have a very unique perspective as like pure, not pure Adventist, but like pure, like as in like we've just grown up in it. Like it's all we've understood, right? And maybe it's not exactly the same for you, but I feel like from what it sounds like, that has been very natural to you, and like getting baptized at grade 10. Grade 10, you said, like that's very like I feel like that's a story you hear a lot, right? So what are some challenges you think that brought you closer to your faith in that way?
Well, I wouldn't. I mean, I lived a lot of life between birth and grade 10, so I would say, you know, and there was that whole always pull between my dad and my mom and his lifestyle. He was an alcoholic and lived the world's life, and then my mom, who was trying to be Christian, you know, and live her faith how she could. So, and there was, you know, inconsistencies even among that and within the church that I saw a lot. So, I would say, I don't know. I just really found. I don't know how to put the challenges into words, but I do know what were the blessings that kept me within my faith. And that was always like people that God put in my life. So like I said, in high school, and then when I was in college, a wonderful lady that worked in the business department, again, was like, you know, like a mother on the campus for me, and really like took me in and helped me with so many things. So I feel like those blessings, you know, helped me along the way. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, you know, and then I've had a lot of other experiences since then. So then after being married young from Southern, went on to go into the mission field. I've been back 7 years and I was out 12. So in that journey, that was always interesting as well. A lot of challenges. Not to live out my faith, not like I doubted or anything like that, but to contextualize things. You know, here you are in West Africa, in an island in called Timor-Leste, or in Laos, you know, where it's a communist, and, you know, Christianity it's not illegal, but it's kind of, you know, it seems like it is in practice. And so, like, just how that happens is very different. And learning to, you know, live within the culture and within my faith. And then just also a lot of seeing how we have not been, you know, good missionaries in the past. We came in and removed culture in the name of faith, and like trying to stand for, no, that I know you were taught that and I'm so sorry. but this is okay. This is part of your culture, and you don't have to, you know, deny that to be a Christian.
Right.
Yeah. So that was interesting challenges. Yeah.
Oh, where have you served?
So I served in Senegal. That was for 5 years. My two older children were 2 and 5, I think. No, 1.5 and 3 when we arrived there. And then my youngest, who you are her science teacher, she was born there about halfway through the 5 years. Yeah.
Cool. And then
from there to East Timor, which had been, I don't know how many years out of a civil war. So that was a rough placement. That was for 4 years. I struggled there. I don't know, my mind didn't want to be there. My body didn't want to be there. But like, they're good people, and you know, there were good things that happened. But that was a real struggle placement. We were working for ADRA at the time, and then after in Laos, which my heart was open somehow. My mind was open. I learned to speak Lao. I could speak in the market and get what I needed. And that's a tonal language. So it's like a whole nother thing, written in a script, not in a, you know, Latin alphabet. So yeah, that was interesting. And there I had a really exciting, I wouldn't say a pivot, but a embellishment maybe of my Christian journey through interactions with other missionaries of other faiths. So that was always like something I hadn't experienced when we were in other placements. I mostly interacted with locals, which you're there to do, and also in Laos did the same. But there was this real camaraderie that already existed among the missionaries of different countries and different denominations. So that was really nice. I got to know some wonderful people and learn to worship in different ways that I wasn't comfortable with before. And that was really a blessing. It was so hard to leave Laos. I did not leave by my own wishes. I wanted to stay there for much longer. I was homeschooling my kids at the time. The oldest was in 10th grade when we had to leave and come back here. So that was unfortunate, but I loved that. Yeah. And I probably can't speak any Lao now. If I see someone and I can hear, like, if they speak Thai, it's very similar. And I'm like, my mouth wants to open, but nothing's going to come out. That makes sense, I think. But I know I was doing really good at the time.
That's so funny. Yeah, I want to maybe touch back a little bit on when, how you mentioned that you had like this, you said epiphany type of thing, right? But how does that play into like your faith journey? Because you've been an Adventist, well, you've been baptized since you were in 10th grade, and obviously everything leading to moving away to a totally different part of the world. What did you see, like the difference, like how people's faith are here than compared to people who, you know, across the ocean? Like, how did that tie into your faith journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's different in each country. Like, I can't generalize all of my experience in any way, but what I was trying to say was really the exposure I had to kind of the way other, not cultures, but other faiths worship was very new to me. I remember attending I guess it was like a women's ministries kind of thing with all the ladies. We had went to a retreat place and just, you know, being able to, well, like just one experience where we were all just kind of in a circle, and they're just so natural at it, and I'm so unnatural at it. And so we were like, yeah, and let everyone face outward. And it was raining outside. The doors were all open. It's very warm rain in that country, but just facing outward in a circle, so your backs are facing each other, and then just, you know, kind of like popcorn prayer and just, you know, praises, and just to feel free like that was like new to me, and you know, kind of peeking around and realizing that, you know, women are very comfortable, you know, expressing themselves physically and in different ways, and some wanted to sit and kneel, and I was just like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I just don't think I'd worshipped like that before. And so that for me was a real blessing. It just really turned my own personal worship around and really prepared me to be able to go through some really difficult things by worshiping in that way and really connecting with God physically and not just on an intellectual level.
Right. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know it probably was pretty cool to be able to be with your kids and experience that whole thing with your kids. So how maybe difficult or how easy maybe was it to raise 3 children while being in a missionary field and doing all those things? How was that?
Not easy for sure. And just the expense of trying to put them in a school that is, you know, international or whatever, like that's impossible. So I ended up homeschooling them. So like my oldest, I homeschooled her from grade 5 up until 10th grade. I think she skipped 8th somewhere in there. She was just too advanced for the curriculum I was doing. But yeah, so I don't know exactly how many years I homeschooled, but that was interesting. And then in different countries, it was different, so that there was more camaraderie between other homeschoolers and that, which was nice. It's really tough on the kids. It's called a TCK. It means a third culture kid. So you're not your parents' culture. You're not this culture you're living in. You're this other thing that doesn't make sense to most people around you. So that's a whole difficulty that you'll have to enter them to find out about.
Yeah, wow.
But it's a challenge, and you know, you try and make up for the lacks where you can, but they're also gaining an amount of you know, an immense amount of wisdom and knowledge and experiences. Yeah, they don't regret our world travel at all. So
Yeah, I feel like if I was a kid and we were just traveling, I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
It is. What's hard is the transition back. And I have some missionary friends who are still out there, and I see their Facebook, and and it's like, oh, they're still there, they're still in it, and I know what that's like. But it just, I just know that at some point there's the transition back. Unless they marry local, like that's happened too, and they stay out there. But it's a hard transition back, and for different of my children, it was harder than others. But you come back, and even for me as an adult, after being 12 years away. And I'm not even Canadian to begin with. I was American before I was Canadian. And so, but coming back to Canada, which I had lived in for, 5 + 3, so 8 years before going out, like, you don't feel normal. You walk in and you're like, yeah, oh, I didn't know that's not what I'm supposed to wear. And that's not what oh, wow. And this and that,
Oh, yeah.
it feels odd.
Like a culture shock.
It's a culture shock.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Even coming back, I would, can you touch a little bit on that? Like the transition back and how that was for your kids. So when did that happen?
We came back in 2017.
Like as a family?
As a family, yeah.
Was that here to Lower Mainland?
Right here to Lower Mainland, yeah. Okay. And it was difficult at first. I was subbing in the school to have employment. And then after that first year, Kathy was the principal, and she's like, I just love you, and I'm going to find a place for you. And I was like, okay. Because there was no French teacher, permanent, not full-time. It was like something different teachers did on the side. And so she made this new position, this new room. Like it used to be do you remember? It was
the computer lab. Yeah, it was a study hall.
I subbed for you, and you were like in 12th grade, I think.
Yes, I was in 12th grade.
That was the year I subbed, yeah. And it was the study hall, so they made it into my classroom.
Wait, your classroom was never there?
It was the study hall.
Yeah,
it had this big table.
It was
bunch
literally,
of weird tables.
yeah, it was just a room. You just sit in there and the computer. There's computers there.
I
did
not know that.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
that's
I
why
remember.
there's no heat in your room.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's why. It's an old building. That's why there's no heat in my room.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I remember when you were taking that test. Do you remember that? And you were like, I don't know what to put on
Oh,
here.
yeah, they were like the ethnic thing, because they did not have anything for
She's
like a Hispanic
white,
female.
black, Asian. I
was like, so what am I, white? Or am I like...
I know. And I was like, I don't know. And I understood. I connected. I was like, I get what you're saying here.
And they were like, wow, we don't feel seen right now in this moment.
I'm like, let's just put white.
Yeah.
And you laughed out loud. Hey, guys, I guess I'm white.
Yeah. I felt so privileged in that moment. I was like, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So anyway, my teaching has been a huge part of my life. I love it. I love what I do at Fraser. I became the French teacher, the art teacher, which is fun, and homeroom Bible. I was teaching grade 10 for years. Got to teach my second oldest 1 year. I got to teach my youngest 2 years in a row now, because I moved up from 10 to 11 and followed her. Not on purpose. It just happened.
Yeah. We'll see if it happens again next year.
Oh, you think?
I don't know.
No, I've got this curriculum down. I'm doing Bible, Daniel, and Revelation. So now I once I've studied it and I'm ready, I'm not moving. Yeah. I forgot the question.
We're talking about the transition. The transition back from mission.
Yeah. So it wasn't easy, but I was just really grateful. The community I found at Fraser has been wonderful. Different staff that have come and gone, even that aren't there anymore, just were wonderful to me. And it gave me a stability. Like I said, went through a very large transition 3 years ago, and with the blessing of colleagues surrounding me, just kind of at the tail end of COVID, was able to put one foot in front of the other and continue with life. You build and it burns down. Build again, it burns down. That's my experience. But what I see now is the ashes and flowers growing in those ashes. That's where I am now. And it's such a blessing. Which brings me back to boundaries.
Yeah.
Where we started.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe explain for those who don't know what boundaries may be, like what that class looks like or what it's about? So boundaries is, I have women every year. We started with single moms, and then we opened it more up just this third year to any female. A couple from within the church joined in, but mostly still people from outside, whether they're moms or whether they're single or not. And that comes up. Like there's women who are there. They know they need to be there. Someone brought them there. They know there's this issue, but they can't put their finger on it. And they're asking that at the beginning. What does that even mean? What is a boundary? And
one of the ladies that co-facilitates with me said it very well. I don't know where she quoted it from, but she said boundaries are the way we show other people how we want to be treated. And so it's kind of our guidebook. We come with a manual, and this is my manual, and this is how I want to be treated. And if we don't have boundaries in place, then people can treat us however, because we're not saying that's not okay. One of the main things that the women always connect with, and it doesn't even come from the book Boundaries. It comes from another book that I read before called Prodependence, and it's the concept of a hula hoop. And I don't know if you caught that when I did a worship talk at school once about it. So a hula hoop, you've played hula hoop when you were young, swinging the hula hoop around. So everyone has their hula hoop. You have yours, I have mine. I'm responsible for everything inside of my hula hoop. You're responsible for the stuff in your hula hoop. You're responsible for yours. It's really hard for women because some of us birth children and we're all up in their hula hoop because we change their diaper and we feed them and we're responsible for everything about their life. They cannot exist if we don't nurture them. And so that's a hard thing because it makes us inclined to do all their stuff in their hula hoop. But our job as parents is to eventually work our way out so they can be independent people that function on their own. I often tell my students, last year when they were in 10th grade, and they still know this year, my 11th graders, if you feel like your parents are all up in your business all the time, always in your hula hoop, it might be because you're not taking care of your hula hoop. You're not taking care of all your responsibilities inside that. And so then they feel tempted to step in, try and make decisions for you and push you along in ways that make you feel like a child. It's because you're kind of acting like a child, right? So our job is to do everything inside our hula hoop. And when the women always connect with that, that's one of the things they always mention. We just finished last week, the last session of our 11, and it was just kind of a time to go through just like 7 different questions, and they just kind of randomly answered them. Like, what was your epiphany moment? What was your biggest aha, basically, and things like that. And that's one of them. They always say, I just never got it before until I understood the hula hoop. So I'm responsible for this. I'm not responsible for your hula hoop. That's you. Your issues are you. You have to take care of that. And no matter how much we want to help, even if it's our grown children who are struggling, it's still them, and we have to let it be them. We have to not jump into their hula hoop. So that's a huge thing that women connect with often. Another big one is no is a complete sentence. Yeah. Sometimes we feel like we can't say no to people. We have to accept whatever we're asked to do, no matter how difficult, no matter how inconvenient. It's Christ-like, right? Sacrifice. But we also have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first. On an airplane, you can't help others until you're taken care of.
Right.
If I'm not breathing properly, then how can I help you or anyone else that's in need? So our primary responsibility is not to sacrifice ourselves for others. Our primary responsibility is to take care of ourselves, to be connected with God and take care of our own personal needs so that we can be of help to others. So that's where that no comes in. You're allowed to say no. You need to say it sometimes to things, and you don't actually have to have an excuse for why you're saying it.
Right, yeah.
I remember one lady just saying something like, "What? I can't say no if I don't have an excuse, for what? I always come up with the excuse first, and then I know if I can say no." No.
Yeah. No, but that's very true. I think sometimes I used to be like the type of person like people pleasing, you know what I mean?
Right.
Where we think a no is such a negative word, but it's really not. There's a lot of power, and I think it falls under that like boundaries thing. It's how you say like this is like no, please.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's always been this whole like negative connotation about no, but really it's like it's a positive thing. We use it in the right way.
Right.
It's a powerful tool.
And it enables people to ask you to do favors in a better way, because I remember just recently someone asked me something and it was like not something I'm good at all. And my answer was just, no, I can't help with that, and I would love to help with this, because there was another aspect of the same event that I could help with. And I was happy to help, but that no way. Like, I don't want to feel that stress. That's just not my thing. And she was so grateful. You know, she actually said, oh, I just really appreciated that you said no. Because then, you know, she doesn't have to feel bad. You know, we ask people, if there's this person that you ask a favor for and you know they're able to say no, then you don't have to feel guilty asking, right? You can ask them in confidence, knowing they'll make the decision because it's in their hula hoop, whether it's right for them to be able to help you at that time, right?
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah, I think what you do is so important. Like at the
100%.
school and even here, like with those that boundary course, like
Yes.
that's things that people like need to know. I feel like I should take the class.
You should.
I need those
You should.
boundaries.
And that's the thing. We kind of marketed it towards single moms at the beginning, just because we did. Like the way it happened is I was sharing my story of what I was going through, and the person had a similar experience, and I knew that, and that's why I chose to meet with her. And after I shared, she said, "Oh well, I have some friends, and we're going to read this book called Boundaries. Would you like to join?" I was like, you know, I've had that book on my shelf for probably as old as you guys are. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what the year it was published, but it was a long time. I've had that book for a long time. It was part of my ministry shelf.
Yeah.
But I never read it. And I don't know if I would have read it if I would have got it. I don't know if I was ready to understand it yet. But I started reading it with these ladies, and I was into chapter 5 when Pastor Sabina we had already been talking. Pastor Sabina knew my whole story, and we had already been talking about trying to do something, and I wanted to be more involved with single moms. I had done the, like the oil change, helped out there, and in different ways, taught like a watercolor class to the women as they waited for the oil change and things like that. And so we were talking about different ideas. And then so one day I think it was on a Zoom call that we were doing. We were trying to come up with something. And then she's like, so have you heard about this? And she holds up the book. And I was like,
You're like,
I'm like in chapter 5 of that book.
Wow.
And it's amazing. Like it was changing my life completely, my outlook, my aspect. And she was like, oh, because I had this idea, you know, and I don't know where she got the idea or what, but she said, oh, did you know there's videos, like some videos that go with it. We don't really use the videos that much. They're dated. Because the book is dated, I'm telling you. But the workbook that came with it and the questions and all that. And I was like, yeah, let me look into it. So I read through it and I was like, this is going to be so good. And so we planned it out. It was going to be once a week through the first fall. And we had, I don't know, maybe 20. I think it was average 18 to 22, something like that, every night for that first one. Wildly successful. I mean, just so overjoyed to see the reactions of people and as they took that journey and to see them, you know, clarifying and understanding and just their gratitude at the end, just amazing. And then we just did it again the next year. One of the ladies was able to say no because she couldn't continue because she had a new young baby. And so then the two of us continued. And then this third year, we co-facilitated with someone who has taken the class for 2 years in a row. And then she joined us in teaching, which is such a wonderful thing to see, you know. And again, always gratitude from everyone as they're learning.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was helping out with the kids for that. And just seeing how many, like, ladies at the end, like last week, they're just like, let's go out for dinner and celebrate. And you can just see how they're like, their life literally was changed, like walking out those doors. And, yeah, I mean, I think that's such a powerful thing to implement, I think, not only to our church, but also to our community, because then there's like some of these ladies who are bringing their kids and they're like having a tour of the church and they're like, oh, wow, like what's happening over here? So yeah, I think that's really beautiful what you guys are doing and also empowering women. I think that's so important to like, especially when I think culturally sometimes women don't always have the voice to say no, you know what I mean? And putting up those boundaries, because I feel like, yeah, just sometimes life goes, you know, and I think culturally too, no is hard. So yeah, I think that's very important. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what all of, you know, my ministry is about right now is empowering women. I find that important with my experience and what I've gone through. I've been affected by domestic violence my whole life, since childhood up until recently. So it's very important to me. I'm super passionate about it. And a lot of the women that come to the Boundaries have similar experiences, and they are so grateful when I'm open. In a very private group like that, I can be very open, and it's eye-opening for them. And I think they're also empowered by seeing, several of us in the group are professionals, and like that's helpful for, there's such a stigma around women's ability. It's really about boundaries. Like, if I knew boundaries earlier, I would have set in place things that would have protected me better, and I didn't know. One of the things I learned from a wonderful ministry run by the MCC, which is the Mennonite community, it's this phrase they said over and over: you did the best you knew with the knowledge you had at the time. And I love that phrase, and I say that to the women in our course all the time as well. Now you know better, now you can do better. And it's that simple. And we all feel guilty for, how we managed our children's hula hoops when we shouldn't have, as they grew, and we should have let them experience life on their own and make some of their decisions. A lot of us in that group, are like, yes, I know. And one of the most beautiful things that was said to me recently from one of my children, who's on their own now, was that they recognize the hard work that I've been doing. And that's just such a wonderful thing to hear, that they recognize, like, it was not easy learning a different kind of pattern. And, you think you're helpful. Moms don't try to be mean. They're not trying to be in your hula hoop to be mean. They think they're helping. They honestly think they're helping, whether it's their children or, different relationships or family members. It's called codependency. I'll just call it what it is. I was also really blessed by being a part of a codependency 12-step for about a year. And that was a huge blessing. I went to meetings every single day for 1 year, online meetings. And that was a huge help to me as well. We don't understand. We want to help, and we think, well, we're being helpful, helping you help yourself. But we don't recognize that it's enabling behavior that doesn't allow people to grow up and to make their decisions and to do right actions and to experience the consequences of their own behaviors. That's a big thing we talk about in Boundaries as well. The laws, there's 10 laws. And one of them is, experiencing, reaping what you harvest, experiencing the consequences of your own behaviors. So, it's a tough thing. And I'm just so grateful that I can shed a little light to the women I work with, and every year I grow, which is so wonderful, because I'm sitting there like, I'm not perfect. You have to understand, I'm still struggling with things. And then I'll get to the meeting and I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to say it here because it's very appropriate for this moment. And I'll say what I've been going through, and they're just grateful for the vulnerability, I guess, the honesty, and the lack of shame, because a lot of us who have gone through difficult things like this, we carry so much shame. We think it's our fault for what we went through. And it's good because in that group, I'm helping them cast off the shame. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And I think a lot of times, it is that community that builds that ability to loosen that shame.
Right.
Like it is that community and being around people who just want to love on you and support on you. So that is such a huge thing that everyone needs, right?
Exactly. And we've always been really neutral in the seminars, like of the 3 years. We'll say, we're going to pray, and if you don't feel comfortable, you can just sit with your eyes closed or open, and that type of thing. But this year, somehow just the women who are in it are very religiously inclined. They're not necessarily from our church, but there are a lot of quite religious women in there, and so they've kind of taken the helm and pushed us towards being a little bit more open about things, even though we've been trying to be really careful not to step on toes. So I've kind of lost track of who exactly in the group is, kind of more open to God and not, because they've been so open, and it kind of was an interesting reaction we got from one lady that was saying, I've never been religious, but I'm just wondering if there's something here that I need to, discover more about. They're feeling it, because we do talk often about community and safe people, and learning to, that's how you start to set boundaries with people that are safe, that will accept your no and leave it at that. Because there's people that you're going to have actual lack of relationship. You're going to have to do physical distance, or at least emotional distance, to be able to have boundaries with, because they're not ready to follow what your guidebook is of how you want to be treated. So there's that. And, but then there's that emptiness. They need to find a community where they are with people that can accept their no's. Right. And so for me, I feel that's the church. That's where I find my community, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's also very interesting and very cool that you guys wanted it to be super neutral, and just you are a human being, and this is how you should set your boundaries as a human being.
Right.
But God just worked his way in there naturally. And I think, personally, those two things kind of go hand in hand. Christianity and knowing you have God in your life, and being able to set those boundaries for yourself. Because you have that relationship, right?
Yeah, and I want to say God is a God of boundaries. That has to be said. God doesn't work in our lives unless we want him there. We pray for the Holy Spirit, because we know that means we're open, enter into our lives. But we can also refuse God, and he's not going to, he can only try so much before he has to step back, and he has to get out of our hula hoop and let us decide, right? And that's, for me, I don't know if any people are going to come at me with some theology, but for me, that's where I see the unpardonable sin is that it's, we have said no to God so much that he can't work in us. He has to respect that boundary.
Wow.
And there it is. Yeah. And the unpardonable sin doesn't mean he can't pardon. It means you're not going to let him anymore.
That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. God is never going to push anything that.
Right.
Because then, is he a God of love? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think love respects boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
As much as he asks us, because he asks a lot, he equally wants that same effort from us, right? I don't know if you know what this looks like, but this, just from the sounds of it, and I haven't seen too much personally about this ministry, but from what it sounds like, it's such a powerful ministry and such an impactful ministry, especially with those who have been attending, from what it sounds like. But I would love to know if you maybe have a vision for what's next for Boundaries, or what the future looks like for the course, how you can grow it. What does that look like?
Yeah, so let me tell you about End It Now. So I was partially sponsored by the church to attend the End It Now seminar in New Orleans. So End It Now is our church's response to abuse, whether it's power struggles within the church or abuse in families, domestic violence, sexual abuse, whatever the type of abuse is. End It Now has existed a very long time. I remember it very, very early on in my church experience that it was there. But it was interesting to me when I was going. My husband and I was just remarried a year and a half ago to my sweet Eddie. He went with me. We both wanted to attend this. It was in New Orleans. And I would tell people, I'm going away and this is what it's for. And most Adventist people did not know what End It Now was. And I was kind of surprised, but not at the same time. So anyway, we went there. It was a really fantastic training, basically trying to help people. We just don't talk about abuse in the church, and we need to, because the statistics are staggering. They're not different outside the church and in the church, which is roughly 33%. So that's horrifying to know that in our congregation, 32% of families are having some sort of abuse issues going on in their home. This specific statistic, and it sounds crazy, but it was mostly about physical violence. Yeah. So with that kind of number, like, this is a ministry that we need to be talking about more. And it's a ministry that's aimed at both, healing the person that's being abused, but also dealing with, how to approach the abuser as well. The person who chooses to abuse is how they like to call it at End It Now. So that was really interesting. And I think kind of the biggest takeaway for that is kind of like, what would you say if someone came to you and they said, well, this is happening to me? And that's kind of a 3-step thing that we practiced over and over. We did role plays and scenarios, and you're this and I'm that, and then and you have to respond, which was very, very interesting. Good practice to make it like, muscle memory, like anything. And so it was a 3-step thing, and it was believe, grieve, and relieve. Okay, so the first thing is we need to help the person know we believe them. And wow, you have no idea what it's like to confide this terrible thing that you're so ashamed of to someone, and for them to be like, oh, but this person who abuses you is so nice, and it's like, yeah, and I know, So believe, that's the first thing. We need to help a person understand we believe them. And so just as simple as saying, I believe you. I believe you. And then the grieve is to, like, grieve alongside them. This should never have happened to you. This is not right, I'm so sorry this has happened to you. And then the third step is just to kind of relieve, and it's more like, guiding them towards resources, because we might not be the right person or know even how to help them in any way, shape, or form, but to know those resources. So at the training, we were looking up our local resources. Eddie and I our job was, we kind of split up into groups. There was kind of Western Canada with the North Pacific US people, down from Sacramento up to Vancouver, and then the other group of people. And we were trying to, like, figure out what are the resources in our area, what can we point people to when they come forward with some sort of information, so we can help them.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, I know. And there's another free training if anyone's in the Washington, D.C. area of our listeners. There's a free training in February. It's the exact same thing that I went to. Yeah. It's really good.
No, that's really good. And I think that's 100% nothing. Like, we don't talk about the things that happen behind closed doors at all. And I think it's such a common thing, especially in church, and I feel like a congregation this big too. We don't want to say what really goes on, and I feel like, sometimes we feel ashamed, or sometimes we don't want to be a bother, or sometimes, like, people wouldn't believe, you know what I mean? But I think there is pain everywhere you go, you know what I mean? But, like, I like what you said earlier, the ashes, flowers, and I think even regardless, anything that is happening anywhere, there can be revival again. So
absolutely,
yeah, that's amazing that there's a program like that to focus on settings like these, where we don't talk about what really,
Yeah, like, thinking about it too, like with a congregation this big, it's probably even harder to spot that sort of thing.
Right.
Because I'm new here, but I still barely know half of the church, because it's just such a large congregation. I feel like you meet a new person or you see a new face every week that you come to church.
Right.
So even just being able to have those resources available, so that if someone is needing the help, there is something for them, that they have a resource, or they have a point person to talk to get to where they need to get to. Like, that's huge. Because I think for me, when I don't know how to do something, or if I'm lost in something, for most situations, it's because I don't know where to look.
Right.
And I don't know where to start. So even just, like, having that starting point for individuals who maybe are too scared to ask for help from like pastor or something, like, being able to have those people on the surface level with them, that's huge. And yeah, what you do is huge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
That's great.
thank you.
Yeah, and I'm excited for where Boundaries goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I think that is 3 years, and it's when you mentioned that you had that book sitting on your, like, bookshelf for so long, and you're like,
So long.
and then, like, here you are, you're like,
Yeah.
there was probably a reason why I was, like, collecting dust, you know what I mean? But
know.
yeah, and here you are sharing that with people of the community, and now they're like, just seeing last week a mother just like, where can I put my kid? Like, I want to invest in my child. You know what I mean? It's like a domino effect, because she's transformed. Now she wants what's better for her kids. And I feel like as mothers, you want to only do what's best for your children at the end of the day.
And that's a reoccurring theme also, is that, most of us who have bad boundaries, we weren't taught them as children. Maybe our parents had bad boundaries as well, right? And so, a lot of them, they might feel anger or whatever towards their parent for not teaching them that, but our parents maybe didn't know it.
Yeah.
So we were, we're cycle breakers. That came out often. We are cycle breakers. Now is where we start,
that's
teaching
so
our
good.
children.
Yeah, that's good.
What are some ways you think maybe the things that you do here at church and like boundaries and things like that, how do you think maybe those things leak into your ministry as a teacher?
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
So much. I mean, it's like I see it everywhere now, everywhere. The kid I was disciplining today in elementary, because I'm also vice principal at the school, someone was doing something to him, and instead of doing what he did, which got him in trouble, what could you have done? And he said, he said it himself. I should have said stop. There's a great starting point. Yes. Telling someone how you want to be treated. I should have said stop. And then I said, what's the next step? What could you have done? Tell the teacher. I said, that's exactly right. I told him, I don't know why I felt the need, but I said, in the world community, you go to the police, and here at school, it's your teacher. And that's the person that will help you. But instead, now you've done some actions that cause you to be the one in trouble instead of the person who's really doing what's wrong here, It happens all the time. And in fact, my words were coming out of my mouth one day earlier this week or last for a little student who did something disobedient, and she was refusing to do something. And so then I was talking to her, and then I said, you can't say no to an adult. And as those words were coming out, I was like, what did I just say? And I was like, no, I mean, you can. But if it's something that you're supposed to do that's right, then there's going to be consequences to that action. And I thought, what a terrible thing to say. You should be able to say no to anyone that you need to say no to. But it's a hard stuff to teach. It's hard stuff to teach.
I wish my teachers and my older like mentors were having those conversations with me, because I feel like I would live life so differently now, because now I'm in my mid-20s and I'm having to establish those boundaries and learn where those are. So the fact that we have this ability to be able to instill that so early, that's a blessing. You're a blessing to Fraser. So but now like I feel like I'm learning so much just sitting on this couch and listening. So
no, that's I'm just like really amazed right now, and it's so good where God has been leading you, and now school, because even what you're saying with like the kids, also it takes like an adult who's going to care and like sit down and be like, okay, let's talk this out, because as kids you're just like using your like body, you're just like, I don't want this, or you're like hitting, like I've seen it, like and we don't learn that like we can just use our words, right? We just gonna be like, this is how I felt, and the kid literally gave you the answer, like he knew. Right? But I think that's very powerful.
I also don't think, like I'm in my second year of teaching, but even just like I don't know, what interacting with the teachers and the students, like these students do not realize how much we actually care for them.
Oh, I know.
I don't know about you. Like this past parent teacher, I was talking about the kids. I was praising the kids. I was like tearing up, talking about the kids. I was like, well, I don't know what's going on. Like, why am I feeling this way? But like we talk to these students, and the conversations we have with them, the conversations that you have with them, like we care so much. And like you said, we are the cycle breakers, right? So we're trying to drop things in their hoop, like throw things so that they can use them.
Airplanes.
So
tools.
Yeah, I guess that you've lived so much life, and I feel like you have so much advice to give. So it's a blessing that we're able to have this conversation with you. But if you were to have a conversation with your younger self, We love this question.
Where's this question going?
What would you say to your younger self now, having gone through everything that you have been?
You know, I said earlier, I don't remember what it was, but it seemed epic at the time. But what was it I said? I think I said, I wouldn't have listened. Whatever I would have said, I wouldn't have listened. So it really doesn't matter. I wanted what I wanted. I thought I knew, I thought I knew better. I would have done what I did. So I think maybe a message to my younger self would be, it's okay. You're going to go through ups and downs, and God's always going to be there for you. Because he always was, and he still is.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, that's a new one. She's like, she wouldn't have listened. There's nothing I can say.
Yeah, that's true.
She's just stubborn. I just
we
nothing
haven't
I
heard
can say.
that
Just
one
to you, I guess. Yeah, but
cool. Well, we're so excited to see where God takes you next, and I know what your future looks like a little bit, so it's kind of sad, but it's okay. You guys can ask her about that in the future, because her daughter is graduating from Fraser soon, and her future will look a little different. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We're so excited to see where you take boundaries and just jump-starting that ministry to something bigger and something more for the church.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And thank you for being brave and vulnerable, because I think, like you said, ripple effect. Once people feel safe enough to share, then you start breaking down, those unlearning those things. So thank you.
Well, I feel like we could sit here and talk for hours, but if you would like to talk to Anita for hours, maybe you can join the next Boundaries group, and you guys can have some good conversation. But yeah, thank you again for coming. Thank you for watching and for listening. If you would love, this is our last episode of the season, so make sure you check out our other episodes, and we will see you back in the new year. But like we always say on this podcast, don't forget to love God,
love people,
and serve the world.